what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
U.S. Health Advisors want you to know your health coverage does not have to be complicated. If you aren't happy with your insurance plan, there are unlimited and comprehensive medical plan options available to you right now. U.S. Health Advisors offers solutions which can't be found anywhere else. They can even offer you the ability to purchase more coverage if and when you need it. U.S. Health Advisors offers fair rates and no surprises. Sounds nice, doesn't it? If you'd like to know more, contact U.S. Health Advisors at 828-554-3032 or by email at daniel.bryant@ushadvisors.com.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Exchange on the Mesh Podcast Network, a monthly conversation about startups and small business with ideas, tools, and advice to operate your business more effectively. On today's show, we have a special guest, Brian Hamilton. He's an entrepreneur and he's founder of the Brian Hamilton Foundation, which has a mission to open the door of entrepreneurship for all Americans by sharing tools and training necessary to start, run, and grow successful businesses. We'll also be sharing some of our small businesses of the month at the end of our show, where we'll highlight some interesting businesses that you should be checking out. My name is Jeff Neuville. I'm your co-host. I'm the director of the Small Business Center at Catawba Valley Community College in Hickory, North Carolina. I'll be joined shortly by my co-host, Gary Muller, who is Dean of the School of Workforce, Productivity, and the Arts at Catawba Valley Community College and is doing important work, and he'll be here shortly. But we're very fortunate to have a guest with us, Brian Hamilton. Brian, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Jeff. Great to be here.
Brian, just a little bit of introduction. Brian is an entrepreneur who has experience starting businesses in a broad variety of industries, from landscaping to technology. He co-founded a company called Sageworks in 1998, which was the country's first fintech company. And after 20 years of growing the company and becoming one of the largest providers of software to U.S. banks, he sold his stake to a private equity firm, and he founded the Brian Hamilton Foundation, which is providing education and tools to help people start businesses. And amazingly, he's done all of this despite having an MBA degree from Duke University. Way to go, Brian.
Yeah, well, I won't use the word disabled being from Duke, but it's close to that. So I appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, and you know, I joke because I am a graduate of Chapel Hill, so you know, I despite the fact that it's we're not enjoying the most glorious basketball season, I still want to stick it to Duke when I can. So anyway,
well, I'm on your side. When I was at Duke, my best friend Keith Hart, I'm going out the love to Keith Hart in Catawba County in Hickory. My best friend at Duke, and he was a Carolina undergrad, but he was good friends with, I guess, a guy named Dean Smith. So I went to the Carolina games before I knew I was supposed to hate Duke. So I was an early convert to Carolina.
Well, we appreciate you sharing that hate. But anyway, tell us, you've got a very broad background as an entrepreneur and starting businesses. Why don't you share just a little bit of your experience and sort of how did you get that entrepreneurial spirit and tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's interesting, and the answer is pretty simple, Jeff. When I started out, my mother always says that I started businesses when I was like 6 and 7, but I have to say I don't remember that at all. But I will say when I was about 9 or 10, it was really super early. I just needed money. You know, everybody likes to claim that they're from a poor background and all that stuff, but we really did have a lot of economic scarcity when I was a kid, and massive. My sister Susan had gotten terribly sick when she was young. And my father got hit with about $15,000 in medical bills, which in those days was a lot of money, especially without insurance. And he did not have even a high school education. So we had, you had to pay off these bills. He had to work part-time for years. I did that with him. We were surrounded by scarcity and poverty, all this stuff. And if the truth, really being direct, is that if I wanted to have any extra money, I had to go make the money. And you can't get a job at 9 and 10 years old. So I started these little door-to-door businesses. I sold Christmas cards and would like be cutting lawns. I don't know why they would let a 10-year-old kid cut lawns or 9 years old. Like my parents would be arrested for child abuse now, but I started doing all that kind of stuff and weeding gardens and putting down mulch. And I started just trading money real early. And that one thing led to another. I did that in high school. And now my high school friends tell me that they actually work for me, which I totally forget. But they were working for me in high school. And so I had a business there, and I literally, truly did pay my way through college, and I paid my way through Duke, which, that's saying something. I sold a business.
Yeah, it's a pretty penny there, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty penny. So that's kind of, the reason I think I want to just keep it simple is that I think this happens with a lot of entrepreneurs. You start on a journey, and it goes organically, and you're like, oh, wow, I like this. I like making money, and then you just keep going. So that's what happened with me.
Well, and it looked to me like you also spent some time working with the Small Business Administration and sort of becoming a resource for the state and the community.
Yeah, that was, well, I got to say this. I know it's hokey, but it's Friday. It's Friday. We can be hokey on a Friday. I got to throw out some love, too, to a couple of people and organizations. You're part of one of them. A guy named Bill Morgan hired me at Beaufort Community College at a place called the Small Business Center. You're familiar with them. In Little Washington, North Carolina. He hired me to give a course called Financing Your Business based upon a publication that I wrote for the SBA. And it was basically, how to finance a small business. Well, Bill hired me to give a course. Long story short is all the small business centers in North Carolina within 2 years had started hiring me, including yours, to do courses in small business management. And so these guys, I just totally love them because they truly gave me my start in business. It all started with the small business centers. And you're right, I was involved with the SBA as well. But it all happened in North Carolina. Here I am, some guy from Connecticut, and the people in North Carolina really embraced me. And that's how I started my career. And you guys got stuck with me down here in North Carolina. I didn't go back to Connecticut.
Well, we're very happy to have you. And as we were talking a little before we started taping, I and the rest of our Small Business Center network have had the opportunity to work with your previous company called Sageworks with your product called Profit Sense, which we use to help our clients as they build financial models for their business. But you had a very successful company. You sold it. Some people might go out and buy an island and put their feet up, but instead you created something called the Brian Hamilton Foundation. So tell us, what was your thought process there, and what sort of services does the Brian Hamilton Foundation provide?
Sure. Well, listen, I'm still looking at that island, by the way. Well, sometimes I wake up in the morning, I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? This is unbelievable. But on a serious note, Brian Hamilton Foundation, what's it about? You see the billboards and the radio stuff and TV and all this. We help people become entrepreneurs. It was absolutely systemic, endemic, and every emic to my life to be an entrepreneur, and it brought me to a whole different social strata, and I got to see things, and so my whole journey has been about being an entrepreneur, and we want to help people start businesses, and I also believe it's possible for anybody to start a business. So we teach people how to start businesses. We're obviously in partnership with you folks at the Small Business Centers, but my dream is to get entrepreneurship to everybody, and simple entrepreneurship. What's wrong with a lawn service? What's wrong with a car detailing business? What's wrong with a painting business? Even if it's a side hustle and you got your full-time job, that's our journey. We're not necessarily here to create the next Microsoft. We're happy to do it, but bring that to everybody.
Well, it's interesting. I recently had an opportunity to participate in a program called Ice House, which is put on by, was developed by the Kauffman Foundation, and NC Idea, another North Carolina organization, is really trying to push that out there. And one of the things that they talk about is it's really not necessarily about having money. It's really about having the right entrepreneurial mindset to pursue businesses, whether it be lawn care or a technology company. So it's really getting your mind right.
Yeah, it's true. And by the way, I'm glad you actually mentioned that because it's good, really helpful. We focus on the person wants to fish. They want to catch a largemouth bass. Okay, they want to do it in a lake. We show them how to hold the pole, how to bait the hook, how to put the lure on, how to cast it, the speed to bring it in at. The bass bites, it goes down, how to set the hook and how to reel it in. Very, very practical stuff, not business planning. Other people cover that. Not psychology stuff. Other people cover that. Like you mentioned Ice House, that's great stuff. But ours is very practical. How do you start a low capital service business step by step that anyone could understand? So that's kind of our bailiwick.
Well, when you work with folks these days, what do you see as the biggest challenges for people when it comes to starting a business? And what sort of you talk about some of the practical things you provide. I think you have some online training and
Yes.
whatnot. What sort of tools do you have available to people to help them take those steps?
Well, we have online courses. We have Starter U that's been well received. It's really like literally 8 hours. If you take this 8 hours, you can go start a business. We show you exactly how to do it, what to do. We're releasing Starter High. I've been up to Catawba County a couple of times, actually talking to the kids about how to start a business. I love working with the middle school kids and the high school kids, but that's going to be geared for the young people. But I want to go back to your question. It's a good one. Why don't people start businesses? Fear. Like you drive to work. Maybe you drive to work. I don't know. You drive to work, you jog to work. You probably use a car, right? You're not afraid of a car because you know how to do it. But maybe when you were 15 or 16, that was a little overwhelming. Fear is the biggest reason people don't start businesses. So we try to simplify everything, Jeff, to make sure that people know, hey, this is not just for some guy out in Silicon Valley with the Steve Jobs glasses. This is basically for you. Anyone can do this. And we make it simple. So we try to get them over that fear.
Looking at your information and some of your background, one of the things that really seems to be a focus of yours is that you've really done a lot of reaching out to the prison system, and you've developed a program called Inmates to Entrepreneur. How did that come about? And tell us what you're doing there with inmates in North Carolina.
Yeah. So that's been something I've been doing for 27 years. It's called Inmates to Entrepreneurs. And basically, it's just what we're doing with everybody. We help people who have been incarcerated or are incarcerated to start their own small businesses. It's the same basic approach. Doesn't matter whether I'm teaching this at Harvard or in a prison. How do you actually get out and start a business? The backstory to it, I've told it so many times that I'm sort of boring myself, but it's a nice story, actually. I was good friends through the 7J program with the SBA with a guy named Reverend Robert Harris. And Rev is just a great guy, the type of guy, you walk into the room and the room lights up. He's just a wonderful person. I loved hanging out with him. He's a Baptist minister come out of Oxford, North Carolina. And he would do Bible ministry stuff at different prisons. I just liked being with him. So he asked me to come along one day. And I think I went to Orange Correctional back in 1991 or 92, something like that. And he was doing his ministry work, and I just was tagging along. And one of the fellows came up to me. It was a men's prison. One of the fellows came up to me and said, make small talk. And I said, well, what are you going to do when you get out? And the guy said, oh, I'm going to go get a job. And I was like, oof. And I said in the back of my mind, I'm like, wow, might be hard to do with a record. I didn't say that to him. I didn't want to discourage him, but that might be hard to do. And then that was the light bulb idea for Inmates to Entrepreneurs, which is instead of going out and get a job, go create one, go be an entrepreneur. And then Reverend Harris and I, who was an entrepreneur, started going prison to prison, teaching people how to start their own low capital businesses.
And so are you still going into prisons and are there certain challenges? I mean, I would think there are a lot of challenges when it comes to dealing with that population. I mean, you mentioned that sometimes it's hard for them to get hired. I suspect there are certain types of businesses that are more challenging for them to start than others? I mean, what have you found doing that sort of work?
Yeah, we definitely still doing it. It's like like most businesses are like movements, right? You start with one or two people. In this case, it was me and Reverend Harris, and we just started to go to more and more places. I still go to prisons personally. I love doing that. It's a big part of my life, and we still teach in prisons. Although that program has evolved. Now we've got in-person courses in different communities throughout North Carolina, and we do mentoring. And of course, it's been 27 years, so it's kind of evolved, and it's a big part of my life. And of course, you learn a lot about it. But I will say this, people in prison are people. It's not like MSNBC lockdown with the big tattoos all over the place. They're people. So if you relate to them as people, you get no problems. I mean, they're just like all of us. They've made mistakes. And our view is that, maybe getting a job's for them. It's fine. We don't discourage people to get a job. But if getting a job is not for you, here's this alternative called entrepreneurship to give you a legitimate second chance.
You also seem to focus a lot of your work on reaching out to students. You mentioned middle school. You mentioned high school. I think that if you or I look out at statistics these days, some of the macro statistics indicate that the level, the rate of people starting businesses seems to be declining. There's some concerns out there about that. It sounds to me like you're trying to get them while they're young and plant some seeds there. What sort of work are you doing with the students, and why do you think it's important to reach out to the students?
Yeah, well, it's truly another great question. It was always in my heart. I didn't have time when I was building Sageworks because it was just a lot of work. So I focused on prisons, but it was always in my heart. Let's get the people when they're young enough where we can change the trajectory of their life. Let's get the kids, like, for example, as you know, boys, the break point for boys is about 12 or 13 years old. You get to 14 and 15, not to say they can't change their life, but it gets harder and harder. So let's get the kids early. And by the way, this whole idea, everybody, to be a human being, you got to go to college. Why is this? This is not true. You can have a great life and not go to college. You can get a great life. You can go be a plumber. You can get a plumbing license. You can run a plumbing business. You can be an entrepreneur. This whole idea that the only way to be successful in our society is to go to college is bunk. You don't need to just go to college. You can do other things. So I love going to the kids. They're very real. They're very honest. If you engage them in a very honest way, they always have lots of great feedback. They're fun too, by the way. They're good at making fun of you. So we have, as you probably know, we have a good time. But I really like to get to the kids to let them know that there's an alternative to just the traditional education track. Yeah,
and we do some programs. As we said, we're on the community college campus. We've got some kids that might want to go on to secure a 4-year degree. Some that might be pursuing more of a vocational type training where they can be a plumber or be a welder or be a cosmetologist. But, in our view, all those people are potential entrepreneurs. They probably can start their own business and you sort of like what you're saying, you don't have to get a 4-year degree. For some people, it's the right thing to do, but there's not one track that's out there. It's there are a lot of different tracks that they have.
Yeah. Hey, Jeff, by the way, it's going back to the question I didn't answer. I apologize. I missed it. You mentioned something that's very important. Even though entrepreneurism is cooler than it was when I got out of school. Like when I got out of school, if you called yourself an entrepreneur, that meant you were unemployed. You might remember those days. All right. But I mean, but it's become cooler, but actually the rate of ownership in small businesses is going down. And it's really alarming to me because those businesses represent people who are seeking freedom. Those businesses represent new job creation and innovation. So we want to stem that tide. And I know you and Ann Shaw and the Small Business Center directors want to do that too.
Well, we certainly do. I mean, I think some of it also comes from when the economy is doing very well, the unemployment rate is very low. I think maybe some complacency sometimes comes into it, in that if I don't like my job, I might be able to go out and get another one, and workers are in demand. I've done this work for 7 or 8 years, and back or looking back to 2008 and some of the times when the economy was not doing as well, there were more people coming into small business centers saying, "Hey, I can't find a job. I got to figure out my own journey here, and I might need to start that landscaping business or lawn care business." And that's not always the best reason to start a business, but sometimes that drives people to entrepreneurship, and they find that, hey, I can take control of my life that way and move forward from there. So
I think life is, I know it sounds like a bumper sticker, but some bumper stickers are true. I think life is about giving people options. Maybe being an entrepreneur is not for everybody. I don't say it is, and I know you don't, but a good option. And by the way, what's wrong with running a great plumbing business? And tell me why running a great plumbing business is less important than running Facebook. And you can't make that argument because it's not true. We all are contributing to this society that we're in our own way. And if we can take somebody out of a community college who's got a plumbing license and turn them into an entrepreneur, they can provide for their family. What's wrong with that? We need good plumbers. We need good builders. We need good electrical contractors. And we obviously don't have enough. So I love what the community colleges are doing. We shouldn't take that for granted. You guys are wonderful. You never tell me what to say, or you never prompt me. But, people in this state don't understand that. We got these 58 community colleges by my last count. And, a lot of states don't have those community colleges. My kids went to Wake Forest. My other kid went to Carolina, by the way, thankfully. But my kids went to Wake Forest and Carolina, right? And that's fine. But what's wrong with going to a community college to get your 2-year degree? You save a lot of money, and then you can go to another college. It's a great state for opportunities. We need to take advantage of them.
Well, and I think regardless of what state you're in these days, if you want to start a plumbing business, I think you can make some pretty good money doing that right now.
Wait. I got to just throw this in real quick on that point. I'm jumping through the screen. I was at a session yesterday, Jeff, and it was another small business leader. And I said, well, how much do you pay people when they get out? It was plumbing. It was in fact, it was a veteran-owned business associate of mine down in Wilmington. I was wondering, how much do you pay? $70,000 a year. And holy crow, that's to be an employee.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I need to change professions and go get my plumbing license.
Well, there you go. So, Brian, I know that our Small Business Center Network is going to be hosting a webinar that you're going to be putting on in February called "How to Start a Business with $1,000 or Less." Right. And one of the things that we always hear is startup capital. There's not enough startup capital out there, but it sounds to me like your thought process is that it's not always a capital issue. So. How do you look at startup capital, and what are some of the things that you touch on in that session?
Yeah, startup capital is in the head. So I'm going to do it. Watch this. It took me 56 years to do this in 1 minute. I want to start a painting business. I got to get a customer. I put out flyers that cost me $20 to $40. I could put them out in the neighborhood or the part of town where I know there's business. I put my flyers on mailboxes, indoors. I put them in libraries. I put them in grocery stores. I get out 150 flyers. I get a painting contract for $2,000, but I don't have any money. I get a deposit from the customer, maybe $200, $300, $400 to buy my supplies. I'm in business. That's what I teach. And by the way, I know for real billionaires, millionaires, everybody in between, every entrepreneur I know, no matter what their status is, started exactly that way. And we need to teach people how to start those kinds of businesses, not to go on Shark Tank or get money from equity, which is very unlikely, as you know.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about Shark Tank. It's good entertainment, but I think people watch it and say, oh, there must be lots of money out there, so I can show up at a small business center or show up at a bank or show up at the Brian Hamilton Foundation and expect that there's money floating around. And it's been my experience that money finds good ideas, and if you've got the right idea, you'll do okay with it, but you shouldn't get so fixated on it.
Absolutely. And by the way, why put your fate in the hands of other people? Start a low capital business the right way, and you can control your destiny, and you don't need to get that capital. So, and I'm not sure if you're starting a tech company, but most businesses are not tech companies.
Yeah. Well, Brian, I know that you are on a schedule. Are any other thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners before you have to take off today? Well,
I don't want to go overboard about it. It's hard for me to be unattached to the small business centers. I love Ann Shaw. I loved her predecessor, Gail Harvey and Gene Overton. I followed you guys for 30 years. A guy named Dean Knipe, who you may know. Dean was a great guy. I don't know if he's still with us, but he's a wonderful person from Hickory. And you guys do incredible work for real. We are happy to help in any way we can to develop the Small Business Center network. It is it is a very appreciated resource, but I wish that everybody knew about it in the state of North Carolina.
Well, and you're a great partner. How can people find out about you, and where can they find out more about the Brian Hamilton Foundation?
I don't know where we got the name from, but it's called the BrianHamilton.org. Brian Hamilton is spelled with an I. It's the Irish way, BRIAN, Hamilton.org, and you can learn about what we do.
And there are tools and resources. You mentioned Startup U and things that people can find out there. And any fees associated with that?
No fees. We are a no fee. We're not. I should be one of these Tony Robbins guys. There's no fee for this, but then they end up charging you $400. There's no fees for anything that we do. Everything's free, and it's our way of giving back after having been so blessed over a long career.
Well, Brian, we very much appreciate you joining the Entrepreneur Exchange today, and we appreciate your partnership. We look forward to working with you throughout the state of North Carolina with our Small Business Center network. But we really want to highlight the work that you and the Brian Hamilton Foundation are doing. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to continuing a great partnership.
Hey, thanks a lot, man. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, you take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, thanks to Brian Hamilton for joining us today. I'm going to spotlight a couple of small businesses that I think that you should be checking out. And that, unfortunately, Gary didn't make it. I would throw it to Gary, but Gary's not here. I'm flying solo. But lucky for me, I have two small businesses that I've come across that I wanted to share with our listeners today. So first off, a company that I've done some work with here. It's called YOU Compression. They're located in Conover, North Carolina. They manufacture graduated compression socks and sleeves designed to ensure that lower legs and feet benefit from improved circulation. Kind of a cool company because the founder of the company is actually a medical doctor who specializes in circulation issues, and he's been assisting in actually designing the products and working with his patients to make sure that they actually have medical benefit. They're made of different material: wool, cotton, acrylic. They come in different sizes from no-show to quarter length, calf length, and they're also working on a thigh-high program. They come in different compression ratings from light, medium, and firm. And I've learned more about this than I intended to do in my work with them. Folks that are on their feet all day, airline personnel, medical personnel, educational professionals can really run into some circulation issues, and the products can be very helpful to them. So number one, check out YOU Compression at www.youyoucompression.com. They have an online store where you can buy products there. So that's our first small business of the month. And then I also wanted to spotlight one that I ran across in the Washington Post a couple of months ago. And I think I saw this one in November in the Washington Post and held off a little bit because it didn't seem like the holiday thing I wanted to talk about. But it's a company called rentafriend.com. It's a website that allows you to rent local friends from all over the world. You can rent a local friend to hang out with, go to a movie with, go to a restaurant with, or just go to a party or event. You can work on new skills or hobby. It is strictly a platonic friendship website, not a dating website, and not an escort agency. We're all legit here. So it's available in different cities. You can find it at rentafriend.com, just the way it sounds. Just sort of weird and different, but something that we thought would be of interest to our listeners. Not to say that our listeners need to find friends. We think you probably have lots of friends, but we just like to highlight interesting businesses out there. So Joe Bob says, check it out. We'd like to thank themesh.tv for hosting our Entrepreneur Exchange podcast. If you're interested in advertising, you can check them out at www.themesh.tv/advertise. And you should also just check out all the other cool and interesting podcasts that are going on at themesh.tv. A lot of cool things going on there. If you have a suggestion for the Entrepreneur Exchange Small Business of the Month, email them to us at eexchange@themesh.tv. We want to thank Brian Hamilton for joining us today. Best wishes to everyone, and we'll look forward to talking to you again next month, where my companion Gary will be back with us. Have a great month.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.